In the spring of 1554, Russian fishermen on the Kola Peninsula happened upon a grisly sight. Two frozen ships full of dead men and no explanation of what happened. These remains belonged to Sir Hugh Willoughby's Northeast Passage expedition, which had departed England the previous year. To this day, the loss of the expedition leader and two full crews remains a mystery. Sir Hugh Willoughby left England with the goal of reaching the Far East via a hypothesized Northeast Passage through the Russian Arctic. His expedition consisted of 3 ships: Willoughby's flagship Bona Esperanza, the Edward Bonaventure, named after the king, and the Bona Confidencia. These ships were likely 3-masted carracks, similar to this one. The expedition departed Ratcliffe on the 10th of May, 1553, and spent more than a month battling bad weather before making any substantial progress. During a storm, the Edward Bonaventure became separated from the other 2 ships. She would continue on her own, eventually entering the White Sea. There, her crew would establish trade relations between England and Russia. The Bona Esperanza and Bona Confidencia, under Willoughby's command, continued to sail north, attaining a latitude of 72 degrees and likely reaching the island of Novaya Zemblia before turning back west. By September, the short Arctic summer was coming to a close. Willoughby brought his ships into a sheltered estuary on the Kola Peninsula. This is often cited as the Varzina River estuary. However, Willoughby's description of a 6-mile inlet could refer to the neighboring Drozdovka River estuary. Shortly after anchoring for the season, Willoughby wrote his final log entry on September 18, 1553. Game animals were still numerous at this time of year, and crews had more than enough provisions. With the sea beginning to freeze, Willoughby and his crew settled in for the long Arctic night. Sometime over the winter, every single man died. There is no known surviving account detailing exactly what happened. The only document referenced after this point is a will, written by Gabriel Willoughby, a relative of Sir Hugh Willoughby. The will has since been lost. However, historical texts state that the document implied Sir Hugh Willoughby and most of the crews were still alive as of January 1554. The existence of the will implies that at least one man was gravely ill, but there is no way to tell if this illness was confined to one person or had become widespread. The ships still had plenty of provisions remaining when they were found in the spring of 1554. Ruling out starvation. Exposure to cold seems an unlikely explanation because the men should have been able to keep themselves warm enough by using the extra clothes included in the ship's cargo and by using fires for heat. An accurate, first-hand description of the ships and bodies would go a long way to explaining the crew's cause of death. The only known description of the remains comes from a letter written by Giovanni Michiel, the Venetian ambassador in London at the time. Michiel, who likely heard second- or third-hand accounts, describes the strange scene as follows. The mariners now returned from the second voyage narrate strange things about the mode in which they were frozen, having found some of them seated in the act of writing, pen still in hand, and the paper before them, others at table, platter in hand, and spoon in mouth, others opening a locker, and others in various postures, like statues, as if they had been adjusted and placed in those attitudes. They say that some dogs on board the ships displayed the same phenomena. This description does not fit any of the standard explanations such as exposure or scurvy. Scurvy, caused by insufficient intake of fresh food, would have left telltale symptoms on the bodies such as bleeding gums, bruising, and the reopening of old wounds. If the deaths were caused by exposure, the men would have been found enveloped in warm clothes, either sitting or laying down, and quite possibly huddled close together. In either case, the men would not appear to have all died at the same time. So, if Michiel's strange account is true, then what misfortune befell Willoughby and his men? In 1986, medical historian Eleanora Gordon suggested a new explanation: carbon monoxide poisoning. Since carbon monoxide is invisible and odorless, its buildup would go unnoticed by the crews. Gordon theorized that the crews may have inadvertently blocked off sufficient air ventilation when insulating the ships against the cold, thereby allowing the deadly gas to accumulate. The onset of carbon monoxide poisoning can be insidious. Its victims become tired and simply nod off to sleep, unaware of what is happening. The dead would not become the dramatic frozen statues described in McKeel's account, but they would be found laying in beds, on the floor, slumped over in chairs, and collapsed while going about their daily chores. In this case, the spectacle described in McKeel's letter could be explained as a slight exaggeration of the actual scene. So where would the carbon monoxide have come from? Carbon monoxide can be produced by coal fires. There are no trees and little driftwood where Willoughby spent the winter, but there is sea coal. Sea coal is found where coal veins reach the Earth's surface near the seashore. The coal is washed up and uncovered by waves and tides. The men may have burned this, along with any coal brought from England, as fuel to heat and cook with. Combining this with inadequate ventilation would have sealed the crew's fates. So, will there ever be a more definitive explanation? With further research, maybe. Currently, the Venetian ambassador's account is the closest thing we have to an eyewitness account. A better, more trustworthy, description of the ships and the crew's bodies could prove the carbon monoxide theory or point to another cause altogether. Perhaps someday a better account will be discovered in a Russian or British archive. Until then, carbon monoxide poisoning best fits all of the currently available information and provides a plausible explanation for the mysterious deaths of Sir Hugh Willoughby and all of his men.